My name is Jake Harding, and I'm 42 years old. I've been a trucker for over 20 years, hauling goods across the country. I'm based out of Amarillo, Texas, and I've seen just about everything on the road. Crazy weather, sketchy roadside diners, and some people you'd rather not cross paths with. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what happened on a late-night haul through New Mexico just a few months ago. It was a routine run, delivering a shipment of appliances to a warehouse in Flagstaff, Arizona. I'd taken this route dozens of times, and I liked it because it was mostly quiet stretches of highway. The kind where you can let your thoughts wander. That night, the road was unusually empty, which was perfect for making good time. Around midnight, I noticed a pair of headlights in my side mirror. A black semi-truck was gaining on me, its sleek, unmarked body blending into the darkness. I didn't think much of it at first. You see other trucks all the time. But something about this one felt off. It wasn't just following me. It was matching my every move. When I switched lanes, so did it. When I sped up, it did the same. I slowed down, and it followed suit. I even pulled over briefly to check my tires, and the black truck came to a stop about 50 yards behind me. Its headlights stayed on, glaring through the night like unblinking eyes. I tried telling myself it was a coincidence, that maybe the driver was heading to the same destination. But deep down, I knew better. Something wasn't right. My gut told me to keep moving, so I got back into my cab and hit the gas. About 20 miles later, I spotted a rest stop and decided to pull in. It wasn't much, just a couple of vending machines, some picnic tables, and a dimly lit bathroom. But it was better than being out on the highway with that truck tailing me. As I parked, I saw the black semi pull in too, stopping a few yards away. Its engine idled, a low, menacing rumble that sent chills down my spine. I sat in my truck, debating whether to get out. Finally, curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out, trying to act casual even though my heart was pounding. The black truck loomed in the darkness, its glossy surface reflecting the flickering rest stop lights. I walked closer, shining my flashlight at the cab. That's when I noticed two things. The driver's seat was empty, and the truck had no license plates. The absence of plates struck me as more than strange. It was downright illegal. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing in the stillness. No answer. I moved to the passenger side and knocked on the door, harder this time. Still nothing. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up as I realized how quiet it was. Not even the faint hum of a radio or the rustling of papers inside. Just silence. I backed away, every instinct screaming at me to leave. As I turned to head back to my truck, I heard a faint clicking noise, like a door handle being tried. Whipping around, I saw the driver's door of the black truck slowly creak open. My flashlight beam darted to it, but there was no one inside. The door swung open fully, revealing only the dark, empty interior. I didn't stick around to figure out what was happening. I sprinted back to my truck, slammed the door shut, and locked it. My hand shook as I started the engine and tore out of the rest stop, gravel spraying behind me. For the next hour, I couldn't stop checking my mirrors. The black truck was gone, but the paranoia stayed. Every shadow on the road looked like it could be hiding it, waiting to reappear. I finally reached a truck stop with a lot of other drivers around and decided to call it a night there. The next morning, while grabbing coffee in the lounge, I overheard a group of truckers talking about a series of murders targeting lone drivers. One of them mentioned a black, unmarked semi spotted near the crime scenes. My stomach churned as they described the victims. All truckers, all killed on desolate stretches of highway, and all found with their rigs vandalized. I didn't say anything to the group, but I knew I'd come dangerously close to being one of those stories. That black truck wasn't just following me, it was hunting. Since then, I've been more cautious on the road. I stick to well-lit truck stops, avoid pulling over on deserted highways, and always keep my doors locked. But the memory of that night still haunts me. I can't shake the feeling that the black truck is still out there, waiting for its next target. And one day, it might just catch them. My name is Mavi Daniels. I'm 37, a long-haul trucker, and I've spent over 10 years crisscrossing the country in my rig. Born and raised in Boise, Idaho, I've always loved the open road and the freedom it brings. But one night not too long ago, I learned how dangerous that freedom can be when you're out there alone. It was a Wednesday night, and I was heading to Denver with a load of canned goods. After driving for hours, I felt exhaustion creeping in. The highway was empty, and my eyes were heavy, so I decided to pull into a small rest stop I spotted ahead. It wasn't much, just a parking lot, a dingy bathroom, and a couple of vending machines. There were only two other vehicles, a beat-up sedan parked near the bathroom, and another truck on the far side of the lot. I parked in the middle, locked my doors, and leaned back in my seat, hoping for a quick nap. The quiet was almost calming, broken only by the hum of passing traffic in the distance. But just as I was drifting off, a sharp knock on my window jolted me awake. A man stood outside, his face partially lit by the dim rest stop lights. He looked to be in his late 40s, with greasy hair and a scruffy jacket. He smiled, but it wasn't reassuring. There was something off about it. He motioned for me to roll down my window. I cracked it an inch, my hand hovering over the lock. "Can I help you?" I asked, keeping my voice firm. "Sorry to bother you," he said, his voice smooth but a little too casual. "My car broke down, and my phone's dead. Can you give me a ride to the nearest town?" He gestured toward the sedan near the bathroom. I glanced at it, but didn't see any signs of trouble. No raised hood, no hazards flashing. My gut told me something wasn't right. "I'm sorry, I can't help," I said. "You might want to ask the other trucker over there." His smile faded slightly, but he didn't back away. "It's just a short ride," he insisted, leaning closer. "I'll pay you for the trouble." "No," I repeated, sharper this time. "I can't help you." I rolled up the window and locked it fully. He stood there for a moment, staring at me, before walking back toward his sedan. Even after he walked away, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling. Something about him didn't sit right. I stayed alert, my phone in hand, just in case. That's when I heard the soft crunch of gravel outside. My stomach twisted. Someone was circling my truck. I peeked into my side mirror and saw the man again, moving slowly around my rig, testing the door handles. My heart pounded as I double-checked the locks. I hit the horn, hoping to scare him off. But he didn't flinch. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. "There's a man trying to break into my truck at the rest stop," I whispered to the dispatcher, keeping my eyes on him. The dispatcher assured me officers were on their way, but it felt like forever. The man stopped near the back of my truck, crouching out of sight. My breath caught as I realized he might be trying to tamper with the trailer or hide under it. Suddenly, there was a loud bang on the passenger side door. I jumped and yelled, "The police are coming. Leave me alone." For the first time, he hesitated. Then, without a word, he sprinted back toward the sedan. I watched as he got in and sped off, confirming his broken-down car was a lie. The police arrived minutes later. I described the man and his car, and they searched the area. Near the back of my truck, they found something chilling, a duffel bag he had left behind. Inside were duct tape, zip ties, and a hunting knife. One of the officers recognized the description. The man was wanted for a string of assaults at rest stops across the state, targeting lone truckers and travelers. He'd use fake breakdown stories to lure people into helping him, then attack when they let their guard down. I haven't been able to stop thinking about that night. If I'd rolled my window down more, if I'd let him talk me into giving him a ride, I might not be here to tell this story. Since then, I've been extra cautious. I avoid isolated rest stops and never engage with strangers, no matter how innocent they seem. Trucking can be lonely, But it's better to stay vigilant than to take risks. The road may feel like home, but it can turn dangerous in an instant. Ready to feel a chill run down your spine? Join us in the shadows and dive into the world of terrifying tales and creepy encounters. Subscribe now to Shivers in the Dark and hit the bell so you never miss a story that keeps you up at night. My name is Sam Riggins. I'm 42 years old and have been driving trucks for almost 20 years. I was born in a small town in Texas, and I've always loved the open road. Most of the time, it's peaceful, even lonely, but that's part of the job. What happened to me last month, though, was the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced. It still makes my skin crawl just thinking about it. It was around 2 a.m., and I was hauling a load of furniture through rural Arkansas. The highway was dark and empty, the kind of quiet that makes you feel like you're the only person for miles. I was just trying to make good time and get through my shift when I saw him, a man standing on the side of the road, waving his arms like a madman. At first, I debated driving right past him. Picking up strangers isn't something I do, but something about his frantic movements made me slow down. He looked terrified, like he was running for his life. Against my better judgment, I pulled over and rolled down the window. "Please," he gasped, leaning against the door. "You've got to help me. Someone's chasing me." He was out of breath and sweating, his eyes darting nervously into the darkness. He didn't look armed or dangerous, just scared out of his mind. Before I could even respond, he yanked the passenger door open and climbed in. "Go," he shouted, slamming the door. "Turn off the lights and drive." My gut told me something was off, but I didn't want to leave him out there if he was in real danger. I started driving, but I kept my headlights on. "Who's chasing you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't know," he said quickly. "They've been following me for miles. Just drive." I couldn't tell if he was lying or just panicked. His hands were shaking, and he kept glancing over his shoulder like he expected someone to appear out of nowhere. "Why do you want the lights off?" I asked, my suspicion growing. He glared at me, his whole demeanor shifting. I said, "Turn them off." He snapped, "They can see us." That's when I started to get scared. His agitation was growing, and he wasn't giving me any real answers. My instincts told me to get rid of him, but I wasn't sure how. I decided to keep him talking. "Where were you coming from?" I asked. "Did you see who was chasing you?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "Just keep driving. Don't stop for anything." The way he avoided the question made my stomach knot. I glanced at him and noticed his hands, covered in scratches and dirt, like he'd been running through the woods. He caught me staring and shifted uncomfortably. About 10 minutes later, I saw flashing red and blue lights in the rearview mirror. Relief and panic hit me at the same time. I wasn't doing anything wrong, but I didn't want to escalate the situation with my passenger. The man saw the lights too, and his reaction made my blood run cold. "Don't stop," he yelled, his voice shaking. "They're not real cops. They're with the guy chasing me." His story didn't make sense anymore, if it ever had. I knew I had to stop. Slamming on the brakes, I pulled over to the side of the road. The man lunged for the wheel, screaming at me to keep driving. "Get off me," I shouted, wrestling his hands away. Before he could try anything else, the officers were at my door, guns drawn. "Step out of the vehicle," one of them commanded. The man froze, his face pale. He looked at me, then at the cops, and bolted out the passenger side. He didn't get far. The officers tackled him to the ground and cuffed him. One of them came back to my truck and asked if I was okay. That's when they explained everything. The man wasn't being chased. He was the one running. He'd just escaped from a prison transport van and robbed a convenience store nearby. He was armed with a knife, which they found in his pocket, and he was trying to use me as a getaway driver. I sat there, stunned. If I'd done what he said and kept driving, I could have been caught in a high-speed chase, or worse, he might have used that knife on me. My quick decision to stop probably saved my life. Since that night, I've been a lot more cautious about who I help. I used to think stopping for someone in trouble was just the decent thing to do, but now I'm not so sure. The open road can bring out all kinds of people, and not all of them mean well. I still think about that man's face sometimes, how quickly he turned from scared to dangerous. It's a reminder that in my line of work, you can never let your guard down.